Professor Hanke, thank you for being with us.
Good to be with you as usual.
The Panama Papers are an unprecedented leak of 11.5 million files from the database of the world's fourth biggest offshore law firm, Mossack Fonseca. What does the offshore industry mean, Professor Hanke?
Well, the offshore industry is a qualitative, not a geographic concept, for one thing. It simply means that banks are located in an off-site jurisdiction, shall we say, that has a different tax and regulatory regime than perhaps in the home market. So if you look at it from that point of view, there are even offshore banks within the United States. For example, in one state, Delaware, there are a lot of insurance and banks that are incorporated there because the taxation is lighter and the state reg. But the industry generally is thought of as being offshore, and a bank that is offshore. There are about 50 or over 50 of these jurisdictions that are some very tiny and some huge, like Hong Kong and Singapore are offshore locations, for example. These started really big in the 1960s and accelerated in the 1970s, and they're really a product of the welfare state, particularly in Europe, because if you have high regulation and socialist kind of regulations, the banks decided that they would locate offshore to do their business, and so did insurance companies. So it's banks and insurance companies, and to do that, they've become huge, and over half of the world's money supply is either in residence offshore or transits through these offshore banking and insurance companies. So it's very, very large and a key part of the global financial infrastructure, and it's completely legal, by the way. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about an illegal or nefarious kind of thing. This is a legal industry and business created mainly. It's a result of socialism, and the Panama Papers. The reason that one of the big motivations behind that, and there may be many, it's tax competition.
I want to ask you exactly this question. What are the main reasons for starting offshore operations, or why do we need an offshore bank account today?
The reasons are very clear. As I said, they came because of the welfare state. If you have a welfare state like in Europe, and your government expenditures are over 50% of GDP, you need lots of tax revenue, and you can't allow any assets to escape high taxes and move from a high tax jurisdiction such as Belgium or France or Germany, for that matter, and move into another jurisdiction that has lower taxes. So the tax and regulatory regime is the big thing, because what do these offshore banks and insurance companies do? They borrow money from non-residents and they loan money to non-residents, and they do it at a lot lower cost, and they intermediate funds at a much lower cost than if they were located in some place like Belgium or France, where the taxes and regulations are very high and difficult. So that's one thing. Now, the other thing is to escape inflation. Many people want to get offshore. If you're in Argentina, for example, you want to be away from Argentina because inflation is going to kill you in most cases.
Stay away from Argentina.
Historically. So lots of Latin American people who deposit money offshore, and insurance companies that are offshore that are Latin are just getting away from inflation. The other thing they want to get away from is the potential of government confiscation of their assets. So many countries are so unstable, and there's so much regime uncertainty, and property rights are not protected at all, that you want to protect your assets, so you move them offshore. So those are the kind of the main reasons. Security, that's why they call it safe havens.
Yeah.
The safe haven aspect is a property right aspect.
Very instructive and informative as
Now,
usual.
the interesting thing, by the way, is that
One
why
last,
in the Panama
last
Papers
sentence.
are the names of a lot of politicians in there? Well, this is interesting because politicians, how do politicians make so much money? They've never had a real job that paid any high wage, and they have hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, that's all about corruption. That's another aspect, and it's interesting that
This
all
is
the political
a huge issue, Professor Hanke.
are
Thank
in
you.
there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very concise, informative